Hello, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to do kind of just a simple video. It is Sunday night, so I'm kind of just relaxing here. And I didn't get out to do any photography this past week. I've been super busy at work and just a bunch of other things going on. And I still wanted to get a video up though. And so I thought, well, what's something I could maybe just put together here? And what I came up with is I thought it would be cool to do sort of a Q&A or frequently asked questions sort of video. Like, these are the questions that people ask me and most frequently, and I've never really made a video like these are the settings that I use and this is what I think is right or wrong. Or I mean, ultimately there is no right or wrong. People can do whatever they want to make the shots they want. There is no right or wrong, at least to me. But yeah, so I thought maybe we'd do some of frequently asked questions. I've got like 5 or 6 here that are the ones I get asked the most. So I'll just go over my thoughts on them. And yeah, I was actually supposed to be out photographing a barn owl tonight. I sort of ran out of time. I was, for the first time ever, I was trying to make my own homemade tortillas tonight and for dinner. And it's not hard. I just underestimated how much time it was going to take me. So by the time I got them all made, which they turned out really good, and I made like homemade tacos, and by the time I got done eating, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have enough time to get up to see the owls tonight. So anyways, let's jump into the questions. These are all pertaining to wildlife photography for the most part. So the first one I always get asked is, do you shoot manual or do you shoot aperture priority? And both. So when I first started really focusing on like wildlife stuff, one of the very first photographers I ever did like a little workshop with noticed that I was shooting manual. And we had gone down the road and there were a bunch of elk on the side of the road. It was up by Rocky Mountain National Park. And this was years and years and years ago. And I got my camera out and I was dialing, I was in manual. So I was adjusting and then started shooting. And the guy asked me why I shoot manual. And he's like, not that that's wrong. He's like, I'm just curious why you shoot manual and not aperture priority. And I was like, well, with manual, like I can dial in all the settings myself. Like, like I can set it exactly the way, like typical answers for why someone would shoot manual. And he said, so do you shoot that for all photography or do you shoot that for wildlife? And I was like, no, I shoot that for like all photography. I do manual. That's the way I always, it was kind of like, oh, anyone who shoots not manual is wrong or is like a noob or doesn't know what they're doing. And so I just was every photographer I ever knew shot manual. And he made a good point about shooting aperture priority, especially for wildlife. He says when it comes to wildlife, a lot of times when we see something that we want to photograph, it's wildlife. It could be there for 2 seconds and literally bolt and run off. And, you're going to be missing shots if you're in your camera trying to dial in everything. And if you set it at aperture priority mode, you really only have to, it's not that you can't also go in and adjust things when you shoot at aperture priority mode, but it's a lot less things to dial in. So he had suggested giving it a try. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I will. So I have been shooting aperture priority mode ever since, really, almost. I have recently changed back, but I'll get to that in a second. But aperture priority mode's great. Like I said, I would say 90% of the time when I go out and shoot, that's what I'm on. I do manually set my ISO. That's about the only thing that I still manually set when I'm shooting in aperture priority mode. Yeah, but like I said, I've recently sort of changed. And I think any photographer goes through this where they're like, oh, maybe I'll try this for a while. So I am back just recently, very recently, back into manual mode with auto ISO. So yeah, I've gotten a lot better about like when I head out or like when I'm approaching like sort of a scene where I know I'm going to start shooting, like I can, in my head, I can already start saying like, oh, okay, this is going to be my shutter speed. This is going to be, or this is the shutter speed that I want. And so like, it's really good for like birds in flight. So like when you want to get like that 120, 1/2500th, like kind of shutter speeds, like being able to just set that manually and then have the ISO automatically adjust to the scene, and does really good too. I haven't had a problem with that. So that's what I've been shooting lately, is manual with auto ISO, but also I have mostly, for the past probably 5-6 years, always shot aperture priority. So that's the answer on that one. So again, there's no right or wrong answer on that. It's whatever you feel best with. White balance. People ask me this: do you just leave it in auto, or do you manually set your white balance like every time you go out? And I manually set my white balance every time I go out. And if conditions change throughout the day, I will go in and manually change it. Cameras are, whenever you leave anything in sort of an auto setting, right, you are saying, look, the camera knows the conditions. The camera is seeing what I'm seeing, and it knows how to set the best settings for itself. And I generally do think that's true. But when it comes to white balance, I do manually set that, because auto white balance, I found, it's just not very good. And I mean, again, if it's off, it's nothing that you can't just go fix, in edit or in post. So it's not a big deal. But there is a photographer, I'm sure a lot of people know, up in the Tetons. His name is Steve Mattheis. He just posted a article about auto white balance and how he doesn't like it, because typically when we're shooting wildlife, we're shooting with lots of greens in the photo, right? So if we're in the forest, we're out where there's just lots of green. There's trees, like if you're shooting birds. And auto white balance is always going to try to, when it tries to balance that out, what happens in a lot of the other colors is it can have like sort of a purplish kind of hue, and it's just kind of it's a downside to having auto white balance, because that's what the camera is trying to balance. So if you go in and manually set, you don't have to worry about that. White balance, I do still manually set mine every time I go out. I think if it were maybe like a day where you were shooting and it was kind of sunny, but the clouds were moving through, so it was getting cloudy, but then sunny again and cloudy, and it was kind of switching back and forth, that might be a good time to just throw into auto. And again, if you do have to make any adjustments, you can in post. But for the most part, I try to set mine manually. Another question: what is my biggest weakness when it comes to photography? Well, where do I even begin? There's actually a couple things that came to mind on this. The first thing is, for me, there's a lot. There's a lot of weaknesses I have. Actually, there's 3 main weaknesses there's something that I'm always trying to improve on and, think about when I'm out in the field, or it's like, oh, this is one thing that I know I'm not very good at, so I'm trying to get better. The first thing is composition. I think a lot of times when I kind of get to like a scene that I'm shooting, or I see like an animal, and I'm like, oh, like my instinct is always that this animal is going to bolt or fly away within like 2 seconds. So what I want to do is I want to get my camera out and just start taking shots while it's still here, because you just never know. It may just run off or leave and you'll never see it again. And it's like, oh man, I was walking around trying to set up the perfect background and try to make sure, the foreground was interesting, or, like it was a good composition. And then while I was doing that, the thing flew off or it ran away, and now I didn't get any shots. So what I really try to do, and again, this is a huge weakness for me, is when I first, get there, or when I first see the animal, I'm not going to worry about composition as much. I am just going to try to knock out a few good shots. And then after that, once I've at least gotten some shots, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I see that this guy is not leaving, or he's chilling, or, she's not going to fly away. Then I can start looking at like backgrounds, say, oh, okay, well, the background over there would be like pretty good contrast, so maybe I can move around over to this side. And, that's something that I'm always trying to work on. And, I feel like when it comes to composition, you also don't want to like force something that's not there. Like I've had a couple times where I'm like, man, this bird is on a great perch, but there's no good background. It doesn't really stand out that much. And well, maybe if I, again, go over to this different angle or different light, maybe it'll be better. And it turned out there's just nothing there. Like, it's just not a good shot. Or, I mean, it's not an interesting shot. I kind of will force myself to look at all these different angles, which, again, is not a bad thing. But then just sort of forcing, like, composition, like good composition that just may not be there. So that's for sure one of my big weaknesses that I'm always trying to work on. And then second, I would say is just my videography skills, my video taking skills, videography. Again, I've always been a still photographer. Like, stills are my main priority. They're my passion. That's what I love doing. But I have found a spot for video as I've made these YouTube videos. I'm always trying to get like decent video, but a lot of times things will happen and I'm not prepared. And like whenever I do video, I always try to have my camera on like a tripod of some sort, or like in the car, I've got it on the beanbag, and a lot of times things come up and, like a deer is jumping across the meadow and I'm like, oh crap. And I'm not ready. So I try to take video and I have to do it handheld, and it's kind of, it's just so hard with like a big lens. And a lot of times I was like, man, if I had just put my camera on my tripod while I was walking in, as soon as I see this, I could just put the tripod down and start shooting nice steady video. So that's something that I'm trying to be better about. It's, again, just being caught off guard like that. Of course, you can never be 100% prepared all the time for everything. But yeah, that's something that I'm always working on, is trying to just get better overall at my videography skills. I shoot most of the videos on my Sony A1, but I have been shooting some video on my A7C. That way I can still use the A1 for stills, and then I've got a separate camera for running video. But sometimes I just don't have enough arms or hands to do everything at once, so I'll just end up kind of shooting video and stills on my A1. And so I guess, that may be another question for another time, where it's like, okay, well, when do you decide to shoot video versus stills? And again, I've got a whole answer for that, but that wasn't actually part of this. So, but then my third biggest weakness is definitely patience. I like going to, like, when I was out doing the owl search earlier in the spring and the winter, I was hitting up like multiple spots a day just to try to get as much ground covered as I can in one day. And, I work a job. I work a real job, Monday through Friday. So on the weekends, there's really the only days I have free. And especially during the winter and spring, where it gets dark so early, you just don't have a lot of time. So when I do get out, I really like to try to get around and go to as many places as I can. And that has hurt me in terms of being able to be patient. And like I'll go to a place, and I know some people that are like, yeah, I sat on that owl's nest and I sat there for 15 hours trying to get one shot. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, no, I could never do that because I don't have that kind of patience. And that's something I'm working on, because, again, not saying that I'm going to go somewhere and sit for 15 hours, but when you see the shots they get, their patience definitely pays off. And I just I just don't have it. I just don't have it. Like, I want to go, and if something's not going on within like an hour or two at like a location, I'm like, all right, well then I'm going to the next place, because like I said, when I go out, I try to, especially like I said, for like the owl search stuff, I was trying to get to just a bunch of different spots in one day, so it doesn't really allow me to be patient. But at the same time, even if I only had like one spot I was going to, I just can't. I just can't sit there that long. I would go insane. I'd be like, nope, I'm out of here. There's nothing going on. So yeah, those are my three biggest weaknesses: are photo composition, videography skills, and patience. So another question I get: do I have a problem with eBird or eBird reports? No, not at all. I find eBird to be very helpful. And I know the birding world is so weird. These people are so weird. A lot of people will get angry at you if you go birding and you don't actually do like an eBird report. Like, why didn't you put this in eBird? I'm like, I don't know. And then other people will get mad at you if you do. Why would you put this in eBird? Now everyone's going to know. And it's like, oh man, I thought storm chasers were wackos. Birders and birding people are right up there in terms of like just complete wackos. So here's I guess kind of the tale of both sides. So this always comes up frequently when it comes to owls, especially when nesting owls have owlets. The photography community does not want people to report the locations of those nests. And they say it's because they don't want, if a bunch of people end up showing up, that can disrupt the owls, it disturbs them, it can hurt the survival chances of the owlets, which is 100% true. But the photographers are also lying to you. They care about the owls, but you know what they care about more is that their secret photography spot is now out there and other photographers are going to come and get good shots too. That's what they're pissed about. So, yeah. So for eBird, yeah, I mean, I see both ways of it. I definitely think that, again, using the example of like nesting owls, it's probably not a good idea to report those. But eventually, if enough photos gets out, like people are very resourceful. They know where most of the time this is going down. So I was thinking like if I've obviously, I see a bunch of owls and nesting owls and owlets and I think I've done a pretty good job of like building a reputation of not being, a dickhead or an asshole when it comes to like doing photography stuff. Like I'm always very respectful. If someone does share a location with me, like I never say anything to anyone else. Like especially if they ask me not to. Like, hey, I'll tell you where this is. Just don't tell anyone. But yeah, I mean, I do rely though on eBird for reports. And one of the main reasons is, or I guess one of the other things against eBird is that people will say you shouldn't rely on eBird to see species. Like you should just go out there and find your own stuff. And yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I wish I had that kind of time where I could just go out every single day and I don't need any reports. I'll just go find everything on my own. And that's just not realistic for me. Like I said, I work, I was going to say minimum 40 hours a week. A lot of times it's a lot more than that. And I don't have time to go out and just try to find everything on my own. Like, so eBird is very helpful for me, especially when it comes to looking like I get the rare Colorado rare bird report every day, which is super cool to see. Mostly I'm just fascinated to see what people are seeing out there. And then if something is close or nearby or it's a species I'm really interested in, it's nice to, having a report that's like, oh yeah, it was seen here. And so that's really cool. Owl stuff is helpful too. I mean, I have found enough owl locations that I don't really need an eBird report for owls anymore. But I mean, I still look at it every now and then too, and again, I would love to go out and just be the explorer and find everything myself, but I have a job that takes up 5, sometimes 6 days a week of my life. So eBird's helpful for people like me, I think. So that's the long answer to eBird. Last one. What do I think about location sharing? Oh, I kind of just talked about that. This is very situational. I have no problem sharing locations. If it's something I find on my own, I have no problem sharing a location. I will not publicly put it out there, but if someone asks me, I'll always help people out. I don't, again, it kind of goes back to the owl nests. Like there's a thin line between not sharing a location for the protection and benefit of the animal or the bird or whatever versus gatekeeping other photographers away from your little secret spot or your, it may not even be secret, just your spot. And I can give you a couple of examples of when location sharing has come up for me. When I was doing the owl search, I had noticed a bunch of people, like on Facebook, there's a big Colorado bird photography Facebook group that it's got some really good stuff in it. So I was looking through that, and I noticed that people had found these great horned owlets in this spot, and I kept seeing photos from the same location. And it was surprisingly, it was a place I did not know about. Like I'm pretty well up on great horned owl nests around Colorado or the Front Range, and I noticed that on Instagram, a good friend of mine had posted a photo there too, and I was like, oh man, I wonder where is this? And of course, I was like, well, I could ask her. I'm sure she'll probably tell me. Like I don't know. And I was like, but like I don't want to be. I was like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask her. So I messaged her, and she was like, oh, yeah, it's at this place. And I was like, oh, wow. I had no idea. It was truly like a new location for me. And I was like, oh, that was great. So I went up there, I think that weekend, and got my shots. And I sent her a message, and I was like, hey, that was great. Thank you for the tip. And, it's a person I've also shared tips with, too. Like, not a big deal to me. And again, like, I like sharing tips. I like helping people out because, of course, I want other photographers I know to go out and make good shots too. Like nothing's worse than going out and not getting the kind of shots, But I have also asked for help before for a location and been told no. And like again, there was nothing wrong with that at all. I was just like, yeah, I kind of figured this person was going to say no. And again, it wasn't because they didn't want to give me the location. It was that they told other people who gave them the location that they wouldn't say anything. So that's a lot of how this works is like someone knows and then they tell someone, but they say, okay, well, don't tell anybody though. And then that person will say, okay. And then they'll tell somebody, but then they'll say, all right, I'm going to tell you this, but don't tell anyone else. And, it's kind of how it goes. Just recently with my little fox den up by my cousin's house, I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, oh, where are these guys? And I was like, I can't say the location on this because, first off, the people who asked me about the location, I 100% trust. Like I would have, if it were any other scenario, like I would give them the location. But because family was like involved and like I just didn't want people, other photographers going up to like my cousin's house, and then have them be like, dude, Scott, what the hell? Why are all these weirdos up here? So of course I couldn't say location. But if this fox den had been anywhere else and the few people who asked me, I would have gladly told them. Because like I said, if it was just some random place, then I would have told them no problem. Because they've helped me out in the past too. So anyways, I guess that's my take on location sharing. Like it's very situational. 90% of the time I have no problem giving a location. Because like I said, I don't like gatekeeping good photos from other people. I do think there is something to be said about if too many people know the location, it's bad for the animal or bad for the bird. I think that's true too. So it's very situational. So it's kind of, I don't know, case by case basis, I guess. So, anyways, that was the questions that I had that I seem like I get the most often. Like I said in the beginning of the video, just been super busy lately and, with work. We're just getting crazy. We're launching a new platform and all the things that come with that as a product manager. So, but I'm going to give a little tease here. Something that we got coming up. I went to Star Wars night at the Rockies game last night and, had probably one too many drinks, but it was still fun. And, they had Chris Bryant, Star Wars with the baseball bat's a lightsaber. So that's cool. I'm not really a big Rockies fan. As people know, over here. Yeah, I'm a Cubs fan. But Chris Bryant, ex-Cubs, so of course I always root for him. Also found this cool hat. This cool owl hat. I like it. So I've been wearing it lately. And here's the big tease. You ready for this? What is this old ass camera? This is a Canon AE1 that takes 35 millimeter film. So we are going to go old school for an outing here. I think up in Rocky Mountain National Park coming up, and we're going to do one whole outing where we shoot film only. And yeah, I'm gonna make a whole video about this, so I don't want to give too much of it away. But I mean, I'm old. I'm in my 40s, so it's not like I don't remember cameras with film. I certainly do. I just was never into photography that much when film was still like the main format. I really got into photography right sort of at the beginning of the digital age. So good for me, I guess, but probably also bad for me. I probably missed some stuff. So anyways, we're going to go do a whole outing with film only. And also, all of the video will be shot on Super 8. So we're going to do video too on 8mm Super 8. So, yeah, that's what's going on. And also, again, it looks like California could be happening here at the end of August for some whale watching and some California condors and some Monterey Bay bird stuff. So, be pretty cool. So, anyways, that's all I got for you guys tonight here, Sunday. Like I said, just chill. Wanted to make a video. So, hopefully some of the FAQs were cool and maybe gave you some good answers. So, thanks for watching, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.